Good morning, everyone. I wanted to pop in about an article that I just read this morning from a senior, I think is the senior head of Sigma in China. But one I wanted to talk to you about was how lucky we are, particularly in the Sony realm of what lenses are available to us. And the reason that's become available like that is because Sony have opened up the mount to everyone to basically use to make lenses for the Sony format. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we go through this article from this manager from Sigma. But well, I just wanted to look at the lenses. So if you look at some of the lenses that we're dealing with here, I mean, I adore this lens. I've been using this extensively just later. Tamron, we've been so lucky that they have announced this lens, the 28-75 2.8, that works just like a native lens, and it is just amazing. And now in weddings, it's kept on one of my cameras all the time, and it really is amazing. I can't wait for them to produce something in the 70-200 realm, or even something in the 16-35 realm as well. I mean, if you're looking as well, we're looking at, let me just move this over. You're looking at all the Zeiss lenses. I mean, how lucky are we when we're talking about Zeiss? I mean, I've got the Batis 85, which I just adore. I mean, I love that to death, that lens. You've got the 135 2.8. Look, it is still a great lens. It's lovely and light. The only issue is, I suppose, it's a 2.8 aperture, so I'm not a big fan of that lens, but again, it is a beautiful lens. We've got the 18mm 2.8 wide lens if you want to go down to get something really nice and wide. And the beauty of the Zeiss lenses, they're built beautifully, they're very light on the camera, and they're just lovely to use. You've got the Zeiss Batis 25 f2. Also the 40 f2, you've got the Loxia 25 f2.4, the 85 2.4, the Loxia 21 2.8, and the Loxia 35 f2. And also the Loxia 50 f2. So you can see in the Zeiss range, we're blessed with how many lenses we can actually choose. If we look at Sigma itself, I'll just move this over again so I can see the whole article. This is from Brian Smith. It's a great article. I'll put that link down below so you can read it if you like to go through the whole article. But you're dealing with the Sigma 14mm. Not all these, I don't think, have been released yet, but they're coming. The Sigma 14mm f1.8. You've got the 20mm f1.4, the Sigma 24 1.4 there. You've got the 35 1.4, Sigma FE, it's the 50 1.4. The FE70 macro, so this is a great macro if you'd like to not spend too much like on the Sony FE90. You could have this as your full frame macro, and it's a beautiful lens. I know a number of people that are using that and they're very, very happy with it. The Sigma FE85 1.4. The Sigma 35, this is the one that I want to get a hold of to have a test. I want to have a test between this one, the 135 f1.8, and also this little monster down here, the 105 f1.4 lens as well. So you can see Sigma really have been amazing when you're dealing with looking after us with the full frame side of things. And we really are blessed. Like I said, that's only a number that I've announced. We've got Nikon if you want to deal with 0.95 lenses. We've got the Voigtlander lenses as well that are native. The list goes on and on and on, and we really are blessed in what we can use. Where people were saying we just didn't have a lens selection now, I just laugh now because we've probably got the largest selection available to us from any manufacturer, and it really is fantastic in that regard. The other thing is too that you can use something like the Sigma MC11 or even the Metabones adapter, and then you can use any of those lenses like Canon. I mean, if you're using Metabones or the MC11 and you put a Canon lens on there, that works almost like a native lens if you're dealing with photography. If you're dealing with stills, with video I should say, it does lack a bit. Any of the adaptive lenses aren't as good as the full-on FE lenses, the native lenses, when you're dealing with video tracking. And I'm talking about the only ones that really work really fantastic for video tracking. The Sony lenses and the Tamron I've found are the two that work fantastic if you're dealing with video tracking. But apart from that, those lenses will work amazing if you're just dealing with still photography or even in video. You can use Nikon lenses if you want to. The only thing is there is adapters out there that for autofocus, but they don't work very well due to the way the Nikons are manufactured. But you can use manual focus if you want to do that. So the list just keeps going on and on and on. And that's why Sony is doing so well, I believe, now too, because you can use all of these different lenses and they work very, very well. The interesting thing here is, though, that on this document I wanted to show you from this morning, the Sigma, I think he's a senior manager there in China. Let me just move this over so we can read it all. He's a senior manager in China for Sigma. And there's a couple of questions that I wanted to go over with you about it, because he basically says in the top question, so there are many big players in full-frame mirrorless camera market now. What's Sigma's strategy? And he's basically saying that they're going to see how the bodies sell. But clearly this is a good thing, because Sony is not going anywhere. And I think by far at the end of the year, they're probably still going to be the major leader in full-frame mirrorless cameras. So obviously they're going to really support the full-frame mirrorless cameras. You can see that too, because initially you had to use the MC11 adapter, and now you don't need those adapters anymore, because you can buy the full-on FE versions of those lenses, or you can even send a Canon lens away to get changed, and then they'll give it back to you as a full-on FE lens. So you can do that too if you want to. So they're really supporting the Sony mount, which is fantastic. He also says that we have our own prediction. He's not saying what that is. What I can say is that the full-frame mirrorless is definitely the future, and I think we all know that that's the case now, that full-frame mirrorless is definitely the future. The second question that he was asked was, since Sigma already has a well-established 1.4 art prime line, what are you going to do next? Maybe a larger aperture. And he said there that he actually believes that it's not all about the aperture now, it's all about the size. And he's saying, I think what he's saying here is that they'd like to make the lenses more compact. Because one of the things that you can say about the way Sigma have gone is those lenses are really big if you compare them to the FE line version. The Sigma lenses are excellent. I used to use them when I shot Nikon. They are excellent quality though, but they are bigger, so you do have to justify carrying around that extra weight. So clearly he's going to try, or the company's going to try and make them more compact in size, which I think is a good thing. And he's actually saying there, we've noticed that mirrorless users value compactness over sheer sharpness, so we are thinking about going in that direction. He also says that we noticed that there is no compact 35mm equivalent lens for Sony E-mount right now, not from any manufacturer. The rumour says Sony has some restriction to protect the RX1 series. Is that true? And he said there that, as far as I know, there is no such thing. Sony E-mount is the largest. Sony E-mount is the most open lens mount we've ever worked with. And this is the great thing, and this is one thing I can't understand with how Nikon and Canon have gone particularly, and even Panasonic with their latest mirrorless camera, that they're locking that mount in. Now, I think that's a very, very short-sighted way to go, because obviously they're hoping that they can just sell more of their native lens. Now, I can understand that from a business perspective, but it certainly hasn't hurt Sony by opening up that mount. And as you saw there in that comment, that Sony have opened up that mount and given basically unrestricted access to the mount. That has to help that platform. You can still see that the Sony lenses are selling like hotcakes. You just can't buy them anywhere. If you're trying to get new lenses, they're not available. The 70-200 here in Australia is even hard to get. So, you know, they're still selling like crazy. And also they're selling more bodies because everyone can use their other lenses. So I think it's a very short-sighted way to go. Obviously what he says, I think he says in another statement here, that at the moment there's no official partnership between Canon, Nikon and Sigma. We have to get the bodies first to see what we can do. So they're probably going to have to reverse engineer those. And as we all know, reverse engineered mounts do not work as well as a native mount. That's why the Nikon lens mount and the Canon lens mount work so well with their lenses, because they're not reverse engineered. And what they're saying, what Nikon and Canon are saying here, is that we're really not happy with you using third-party lenses. And I think that's a really big mistake. I really do think that's a silly way to go. So thinking about this, And this is why I wanted to post this video, was because I'd love to know your comments below about what do you think about this whole strategy of Sony opening up their mount to everyone like they have. You know, do you think it's a good idea, or do you think it's a better way, like Nikon and Canon have gone, to basically try and protect that mount? Obviously to sell more of their native lenses. It certainly hasn't hurt Sony though in their strategy. So I'd love to know what you think about that. But as a user, as a Sony user, I really can't thank Sony enough because of the way they've opened that mount up and allowed anyone to build lenses that we can all use. And that's one of the best things about this platform, is that I can basically grab any lens that's available and mount it onto that camera. So let me know in your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video. Bye for now.